What's up, everybody? It is Izzy back again today with yet another Q&A. I do apologize for the kind of like library style quiet voice in the first half of the Q&A today. I am still in the hospital, so I just don't feel that good to be joking around. Anyway, first question. How should one structure their training program for mixed martial arts? It depends on the athlete, so there isn't going to be a universal general approach for mixed martial arts. Some mixed martial arts athletes are deficient in strength, and some already have a surplus, and they need to be working more on conditioning and getting more mat time and doing more skill sessions. So for somebody that's been doing weight training their whole life and has recently got into MMA, you're probably much stronger than the average MMA athlete, at least relative to your experience level. So your strength program would probably be something like twice a week, upper lower split. For an MMA athlete that's been doing mostly skill work for years and years and years and has minimal strength and conditioning, likely they would need to be on a more intensive strength and conditioning program, maybe as many as 4 or 5 times per week. So again, there's really no universal strength training program for MMA. It depends on the needs of the particular mixed martial artist. Start of my workout. I'm feeling sore and my warm-ups are heavy. However, I had a better than average deadlift session. Well, yeah, that can happen. So if you think about it, there's more than one way to have a good acute performance based on readiness, right? Number one is that you have low fatigue and you have your normal level of fitness. And if you have low fatigue and normal fitness, there's a big gap between the two, and that means high readiness. But another way that you can have high readiness and good acute performance is in the middle of an accumulation phase where your fitness is rising at a high level, but your fatigue is also rising at a high level. There's still going to be a nice sizable gap between those two things, but you're not going to feel good even though you're performing well, because fatigue is climbing, fatigue is accumulating, but fitness has also improved. So the gap between those two curves is still large enough for you to do well in that individual workout. So this is something that can happen. I don't think it's important whether or not you can predict it. Just know that it does happen. When you're training for physique purposes, you're going to do exercise order based on your physique needs. So whatever's a bigger priority for you. If your back development is far behind your arms, then you're going to do back first. Or you might even do them on separate days depending on your split. But again, depending on your split, you're going to prioritize the muscle groups that are weakest for you within that split. So for me, I do push-pull legs and pull. I always start with biceps because, as you can clearly see, my back is much further ahead than my biceps, and my arms are probably the biggest weakness on my entire physique. So I train them first, and that's helped me make a small improvement to them at least. So a long ways to go. Should E1RM performance be a consideration for SFR when choosing exercise rep ranges? No, it's literally irrelevant, has nothing to do with anything. First of all, estimated 1 rep max is not even real. That's based on mathematical formulas that could simply be inaccurate for that particular lift or for that particular individual. So to say that like your performance is better in that rep range, you're basing that off of an assumption, and the assumption is that the formula is correct in the first place. And I can tell you right now, that is not a safe assumption. It's not even a good assumption. So no, your performance in terms of estimated 1 rep max should never be a consideration when determining stimulus to fatigue ratio. You should be looking at things like pump, disruption, feeling in the muscle, joint pain, cardio being a limitation, pain being a limitation, things like that, not E1RM. So this question is about logbook notation. When I write down plus reps, so let's say something says by 5 plus 1. The plus 1 stands for usually one of 3 things. Number 1 is it stands for a partial rep, meaning that I did not completely get the muscle short, or I didn't lock the rep out. However you want to think about that. It wasn't a full complete rep. I tried for 1, but I didn't get it. So it's technically beyond failure. The other thing that a plus 1 rep could mean is a cheat rep. So if I was doing rows or something, I leaned back or I used momentum. It's some form of cheating, right? The last thing that it could possibly mean is an assisted rep, meaning that I required partner help, or I used my off arm or my off leg to provide manual assistance to complete the rep. So I did not do it under my own power on the side that I was training, or if there was a partner helping me, I didn't do it under my own power at all. Either way, it stands for something that went beyond failure, plus 1. I remember on an old Powerlifting to Win video, you said that micronutrients have no significant impact on powerlifting performance. Do you still believe that to be true? So this is something that happens on the internet, and I know the question boxes have character limits and everything, but people will take a statement and then strip it of nuance, and then it means something else. But here's my take on that. So micronutrient intake doesn't matter very much acutely for performance unless you have a deficiency. Like if you're deficient in electrolytes or something, then having calcium, magnesium, sodium, and potassium, that can improve performance acutely. However, in the long run, I think what I've underestimated in the past is that most people have absolutely terrible and or very repetitive diets. And because they have very repetitive diets, it's common for them to be deficient in certain things because they just simply don't eat the foods that have it. So I think in the long run, you're going to have more muscle mass, get sick less often, better testosterone levels, all of the above, if you track your micronutrient intake and ensure that you're not deficient in anything. I am a natural lifter. What health markers should I monitor during a weight gaining phase? You don't really need to monitor anything, not even blood pressure. I mean, if you're a natural lifter, I'm assuming that you're already making some effort to control body fat, you're active, you have above average levels of muscle mass. You don't need to do all the things that enhanced lifters do. You don't need to look at your fasted blood glucose, your blood pressure. You don't need to pay attention to any of those metrics. That's the one advantage of being natural, right? Is that your health is almost a given for the most part. So you can just focus on the nutrition, the recovery, and the training without having to worry about pharmacology and health markers. It just doesn't matter. That's why you're natural. Do you think lifters that have been training for many years have lower volume needs, lower minimum effective volume, lower maximum recoverable volume than lifters who have been training for less time? Why would that be the case? I would not say that's true as a general rule. If there is any correlation between how long someone has been training and how much volume they need, it's generally because people who have been training longer are far stronger. So in the really simplest terms that I can use, it just takes less to recover from 2-plate deadlifts than it does to recover from 6-plate deadlifts. 600 for 10 and 225 for 10 are just not the same level of stimulus, and they don't require the same recovery. Do you think intentional overreaching and then subsequent supercompensation is a concept that is relevant to hypertrophy training? There's currently no evidence in the literature that you're going to get a benefit to hypertrophy training if you purposely overreach and then supercompensate with the deload. So in my experience, what I've seen time and time again is that volume sensitivity and volume needs just don't change that fast. I mean, there are some people that like to talk about this, like if you do a certain level of volume for 1 week, you're going to be less sensitive to that volume the next week. I've run the exact same volume levels for 3 to 4 months straight and continued to make progress. So in my experience, volume landmarks like MEV, MRV, all that stuff, it just doesn't change that quickly. I don't think there's probably much value in this for hypertrophy. What to do if I'm only progressing on one side of a unilateral or isolateral movement? I would treat this as a stalled lift. So, I mean, it doesn't matter that you're only progressing one side. The fact is that you're not progressing the other side, so that side is stalled. So you need to do whatever you do when a lift is stalled. Consider adding more volume, take volume out, do something to improve the SFR. So make whatever programming changes that you make when something is stalled. Do your stalling evaluation and figure out why that might be the case and make whatever adjustments that you normally make. Because what you don't want is to create an imbalance through training and have one side getting stronger and bigger and the other side isn't. So you need to treat that, in my opinion, as a stalled lift. Because frankly, it is stalled. There's one side that's stalled. So treat it that way and try to get that fixed. I have about 9 kilos of body weight to lose after bulking. I am 20% body fat. How long should it take to lose the weight? I mean, my recommendation is always the same for this kind of thing. You should aim to lose between 0.5% and 1% of your body weight per week. This is it's not even a conservative rate of loss, but it is the rate of loss shown in the literature to minimize muscle and strength loss. And that should be your goal anytime that you are dieting, whether you're natural or enhanced. For the most part, usually doesn't make sense to do a sprint of a diet and lose muscle in the process. I mean, it might make a little bit of sense if you're newer, but the longer you've been doing this, the harder it is to build muscle. And if you're, doing a big push to gain 3 to 5 pounds of muscle and then you burn 2 pounds of it off every time you diet because you're dieting fast, it sort of defeats the purpose. So yeah, 0.5% to 1% of body weight per week. How important are post-workout and intra-workout protein if your sessions last 2 hours? Well, I mean, here's the thing. You should never be going more than about 5 hours without a protein feeding. I mean, the research on that is pretty clear. If you do that, you're going to risk having area under the curve throughout the day where you don't have amino acids in your bloodstream to be used for muscle protein synthesis. So greater than 5 hours should never be happening. But if you're talking about, like, do you immediately have to slam a whey protein shake post-workout? Or do you have to take BCAAs or EAAs during your workout? No, that doesn't matter at all. It has zero importance, especially for, like, smaller natural lifters. No offense to anybody. But one of the biggest benefits of an intra-workout shake is for bigger lifters that already struggle to get their food down, it's an easy, free 300 or 400 calories. This question asked about nutrition in a cruise versus nutrition in a PCT. But the problem with this question is that you do not combine cruises and PCTs. Blasting and cruising is when you use performance-enhancing doses, and then in between those blasts of performance-enhancing doses, you bring things down to TRT to reestablish health markers. A PCT is a post-cycle therapy. It's when you use essentially a bunch of really fairly harmful drugs to restart your own natural production of hormones. Okay, the reason why people even do cruises is so they don't have to go through PCT. You don't combine these two things. What is the importance of getting the pec fully short, such as what you would do when using a single arm machine and bringing your arm across center line? So a couple of problems with this. Number one, once you actually have any appreciable chest size whatsoever, you no longer can bring your arm across midline without your biceps smashing into your pec. So when you bring your arm across midline, what's actually happening is you're changing your scapular position and allowing your shoulder to, like, pull and rotate forward. So there's rotation happening that's making that possible. It's not even your pec getting any shorter. So basically it doesn't matter at all, because if we're talking about for the biggest people in the world, all of them eventually lose range of motion. They can't curl as high anymore because their bicep smashes into their forearm. They can't squat as deep anymore because their hamstring smashes into their calves. You lose range of motion from the sheer size. This is not important at all. Any experience with knee discomfort from squatting? Oh boy, do I ever have experience with that? Yes. From a hypertrophy perspective, the number one thing you can do is to improve your technique. Slow your eccentrics down, pause every single rep in the hole. That alone will make a world of difference. The slow eccentrics help by themselves, but it will also reduce the absolute load, and your knees will tolerate a lower load better than a higher load. The second thing I do from a hypertrophy perspective, if it's still an issue after that, is pre-exhaust my quads. I like to use a mid-range biased leg press to do this, something like the Cybex squat press or the hammer hip press, something along those lines. It makes the biggest difference. It'll warm up your knees better, and again, pre-exhaust will lower the loads. Your knees will handle lower loads better. From a strength training perspective, you can't just stop squatting. So 1, try using flats instead of heels if you use heels. 2, stretch your damn quads. Stretch them good, improve your flexibility there. And 3, as a last resort for strength training, lower your squat frequency. What do you think of Tom Platz style hack squats? This isn't a hack squat, man. This is a sissy squat on a hack squat. That subtle difference, I guess, but this is literally just somebody who's really, really strong doing sissy squats with weight. So if you are strong enough to actually need to add weight to your sissy squats, and a lot of weight, not just a little, a hack squat is a great way to do it. It's a little bit more stable than a free weight sissy squat. But this is really, really hard. I mean, just for example, I think last time I tried this, it was a while ago, I was maybe hack squatting 5 plates per side for like 5-6 reps or something. And then with a completely unloaded hack squat, I got like 6 or 7 of these sissy squats on the hack squat with no added weight. So they're great, but you have to be pretty strong before you're even able to do any of these. Thanks for watching the video, everyone. If you like the video, like the video. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. Subscribe if you haven't already. Here's a random physique update from today at 235 pounds. And as always, my friends, enjoy the rest of your day. Bye-bye.